and welcome to InRetroSpection, the show where we review the retro today. I am your host, Joshua Caleb, and joining me, as always, I have Dustin Schmidt and Graeme Ellis. How are you guys doing today?
Good, Joshua. How are you? How are the both of you?
And I'm good too, Joshua. I hope you guys are both good.
Yeah, feeling very retro. I've been picking up all kinds of old games the last couple weeks.
For your PS2?
Yep, I've got a whole stack of them now.
Cool.
But today we're not talking about the PS2. I think that may be in that'll be a future episode. But today, in honor of the Nintendo 64's 15th anniversary, we are going to go through a slew of probably some of the better games for it. Which, going through the library, I don't know. Did the N64? I mean, it had lots of classics, but did it have a lot of really great games? I mean, obviously you have like Super Mario 64 here.
I don't know if you could say a lot of great games. It did have its classics, yes.
Well, comparative to the other consoles at the time, it was a very small library.
That's what it seems, because just about every game on our list is a Nintendo game.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a whole lot of third-party developers, I don't think, for it in the first place, but the cartridge format really hampered it.
Yeah, that is true. Which, it is amazing how at least Nintendo was able to cram on some of these cartridges, like the Super Mario 64. It's hard to tell in this video I have, because all the videos I got, the quality is kind of poor. But it other than the lack of textures and rudimentary polygons, it actually looks very good for an N64
Definitely,
game.
Yeah.
It plays well. I mean,
Yeah, and
get over some of the controller, because going back to the old controller was a little hard for me.
Yeah, the N64 controller was probably the worst. The thing I hated about it, that weird trident three-pronged thing. It was really designed for someone with three hands. I mean, to be honest.
It was really weird the first time you saw it.
Well, especially since after using the old two-hand approach with, almost all modern controllers now, because that one's kind of meant to be held in the middle, and I'm trying to hold it like a batarang,
Yeah, well, I think the idea of the controller was to have where, like, for a fighter or some sort of classic game, you would hold it on the outside, so you had the D-pad and like the C buttons and stuff like that, and the shoulder buttons. But then for a more modern game with the analog stick, you would move down to that middle one and hold it like that. But I don't know, it was still clunky.
I always felt like I never really held the one on the far left. It was always like the middle and then the far right.
Yeah, exactly.
I always felt like that other thing was just kind of sticking out for no reason.
Well, I've run into a few games too where you almost need that third hand to be able to push the buttons.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you had a really small unit. It wasn't loud. No moving parts.
Yeah, it was really great.
And it launched with Mario 64. I mean, that and basically created the 3D platforming genre, which this is still probably one of the best 3D platformers that I've played.
And there's all kinds of little bits of humor I found in it, with some of the monsters, and you don't really die. You just kind of end up warping back somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You just get, because this is the one that introduced the hub world, which when you're first introduced to the hub world, that's the part when I saw this game, I'm like, okay, video games just got epic. It looks absolutely enormous. You just are opened up in front of the castle. You can go anywhere. Like, okay, this just got real.
It was confusing for me initially because it was hard to figure out where you've been.
Oh yeah, that did.
Very true.
that caused a little bit of trouble. Well, because the castle itself was almost a level unto itself. There was puzzles and secret areas, and it wasn't just a glorified menu like
It was
some
the
games.
first. It was the first game that a strategy book was really made for.
Yeah.
In order to be a completist on this, you really needed one or you spent a long time with it.
Yeah, there were so many different things to do.
Well, yeah, and each level had like several objectives. So when you go into a level, you would accomplish this one thing. You go into it again, and now you have a different task. And sometimes the level is shifted.
Yeah, it was really good at mixing up what you were doing. You weren't doing one thing for hours at a time.
Yeah, it wasn't just scroll left to right.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, the variety of levels is amazing. Like some of the levels with the lava and stuff with the later, and the climbing.
Underwater levels were actually surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I was amazed at the water the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
No, it was a really good release game.
Yeah, that if they wouldn't have had this, it probably wouldn't have gone off quite as well. If they had to save this for like a year or after, I don't think the N64 would have been as popular.
This was the reason I played this game at one of my friend's house, and that was the reason that I got it. Was just because of this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford it at the time, so I just had to. Whenever I was over at my friend's house, I had to go play his because he had one. I just had like a Super Nintendo or a Genesis or something.
Well, this was the first console I bought, particularly for my son, who I think was about 9 at the time, so it was perfect for him. But this was the first console I had bought since the Atari 2600.
Well, that's a big upgrade.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was. So, I mean, I wasn't a big console player per se, but it had some really great games. The version I happened to get had 2 games in with the box, so it made it a little bit more palatable as a purchase.
Oh yeah, because I think this came bundled with the N64, didn't it?
Yeah. This is the 15th anniversary of Mario 64.
Yeah, they
Right, not just the console itself, because it was the bundled console, and it's an amazing game for being bundled.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
the N64 was released with 2 launch games: Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings 64.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pilot Wings wasn't horrible either. Did you guys play that?
No, I haven't.
No,
It was
the
nothing
version,
like this, but
the version I had was the Pod Racer edition, so
Okay.
it came
Oh,
with
that was-
Pod Racer and this.
That was a later one.
Yeah, it was a little later. One thing I never do is buy a console right off the get-go.
Yeah.
could you imagine if they released a new console today with only 2 games on it?
Yeah,
think
we
people would be up
complain
in
when they
arms.
only have like 6 games or 12 games on a console launch.
Yep.
But
at the time, it was the latest and greatest. Yeah. We do funny things for technology.
that we do. Well, should we move on to... I sort of have these organized by date, but not basically year.
No
So,
problem.
next... I've played this one very little. I didn't actually own this. But Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. Which, it's primarily a first-person shooter, if I'm not mistaken.
Pretty much. There were flying levels.
A couple vehicle levels.
Yeah. The one where you're in the speeder here and you actually have to go around the walkers and put the rope out.
Oh yeah, attach the tow cable.
Yeah.
That's hard.
That was hard.
Well, because
played
when
this,
you
but this looks awesome.
when you attach the tow cable, the camera shifts, so
So
your
you're-
controls are all messed up, and you have to make sure you wind yourself tightly around its legs without crashing into it or losing it.
Or snapping the cable, yeah.
Yeah, so It's really weird.
Cool.
Yeah, and the camera doesn't move. It's not your friend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. However, like Lucasfilm was really big into the N64. I mean, they must have put out 4 or 5 games for it. Which, if you look at the number of games, it was a pretty good percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, the first one that they put out. And it was kind of different because it didn't involve the standard characters of...
Yeah, it was one of those sort of extended universe, though it did take place within the...
Same battles. The battle
Yeah.
for Hoth were in here now, but it's a different Dash Randar instead of...
Yeah.
Han Solo.
Takes place between Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah.
So as you can see here, you're trying to take out some of these little small AT-AT walkers, and now you got to loop around and get the big Imperial walkers with the tow cable.
That is not easy to do.
No, and shooting them doesn't work.
No.
But it's always good to kind of get rid of some of the little probe droids which shoot at you.
Yeah, those in the ATST.
Yeah.
You gotta get rid of those first.
Yeah.
I think if we skip
Boy, it was amazing back then when I played this. It was like, oh, it's just like the movie.
Yeah.
And now the textures are so flat and cartoony. But it's got a nice design aesthetic, anyways. So there's Dash Rendar.
Yep, here we go. Mr. Rendar. A very blocky man. Though the environments aren't terrible. I mean, they're not spectacular by any means.
Well, I mean, they're carved ice things, right?
Yeah. Oh, look, there's a Millennium Falcon taking off.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, that's interesting how they sort of intersperse the story you know, they sort of weave this story around it.
Yeah, and if you play this game, it's like a new level, but you have the familiar surroundings of the other 2 movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's got its own little plot having to do with these super stormtroopers, and you know, it's a real expansion on what we would call the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
And that canon, and it was based. It's very similar to the Doom or Duke Nukem style of engine. I think it was based on the same build engine that the Duke Nukem was based on.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Because I think it was made for the PC as well, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. It was released on PC and
So
N64.
I think I played it on both.
I played the N64 version and I wasn't very good at it.
Well, it's sort of like me and platformers.
Yeah, so yeah, I can finish Mario 64. This, not so much. I couldn't even get past the first level.
I'm pretty sure I finished this, but
I never even played this. I feel so horrible.
it was one of the better Star Wars games, and there were many.
It's great, yeah. I'm gonna have to give this a shot.
And it had nice cutscenes and plot. You know, like it was a well-designed game.
Cool.
Don't you even fight Boba Fett at one point?
Yep.
Nice.
So you try and look for special goods inside some of these boxes.
Oh yeah, those what do you?
The creatures there.
Yeah, the snow creature things.
Yeah, there's a challenge point. You get these rebel emblems that you find. They're like secrets.
I have to say the animation isn't that bad. Guys, actually.
Oh, well, I mean, back then there was low polygons and everything, right?
Yeah.
It was all. I mean, we just moved off the sprite monsters
Yeah.
into 3D.
And some of them were still using the sprites in the 3D.
Yeah. Yeah, the Doom engine used a mixture.
Oh, so the next one I got up here, I've actually played a bit more of. Though I haven't played this one extensively. I had it on the Virtual Console. Yeah, Wave Race 64.
This game rocked.
I've only played this one in the store on the demo. You know.
Well, this one, I think one of the biggest things that it was known for was the water.
Yeah, it was supposed to be realistic back then.
It actually kind of is.
It's very, yeah.
It's a little hard to tell in the video, but the water animation and textures and stuff is actually incredible. It still looks good even now.
This was just one of those fun racing games, you know? Some of them are just great, and this was one of them.
You're racing the jet skis, and
you know, it's funny, when I got the Kinect for the Xbox, this is the first game I thought of that would be great for Kinect.
Oh, yeah.
That would be awesome.
You know? Stand up and just stick your arms out, and move, you know, side to side, and jump.
That would be cool.
Yeah, the controls aren't completely intuitive for like the turning and stuff, but they actually work pretty well. The hardest part is it's not a pure race. You have to go to the left and right of the flags, so it's kind of like a slalom base.
Slalom, yeah.
So that can get a little tricky on some of the tougher courses, because if you miss too many of them, you're disqualified.
Yeah. Yeah, there was jumps and
oh yeah, you could do
go
tricks.
through hoops to pump through for points and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think this even had 4 players simultaneous.
Yeah, 4 little tiny screens.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which is amazing considering the ultra high resolution that you're dealing with here.
Yeah. It also had that stunt mode in it where you could just go over jumps and stuff.
Yeah. So sort of a, I don't know, Tony Hawk kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, you try to get like hoops without missing them, and you know, try to get different stunts in there and play against other people.
Yeah, this was a pretty awesome game.
Yeah.
Well, you're rocking it here today.
Oh, that ain't. If you're talking about the game, that isn't me.
Oh. Well, one could hope.
Though I might be that good on that particular level, some of the later ones, not so much.
Yeah. And this got good scores, and you know, it was a well-received game.
Oh yeah.
Most people.
It was. Now did they come up with a Wii version of this, or
Virtual Console?
so they didn't really actually extend it into a series?
I don't think so, actually.
It's just kind of strange because it's one of those games that you would still play very well on the Wii.
Yeah, you would think so. That is sort of weird.
It's a little untapped potential, I guess, that they can look at later.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Pilot Wings got a sequel and not this. That actually would have had more fun with this than Pilot Wings. Let's see. We got next up is another racing game.
One of the more famous ones.
Yeah, a far more popular racing game that you would have to live under a rock not to know about.
Which I never played.
Oh, what were you doing?
Well, I was playing, you know, a little more mature games than.
Ah. See, yeah, right. They have different age brackets. When the N64 was out, I was a lot younger, so I was playing these kind of games.
Yeah, and my son was a little too. He wasn't interested in racing games.
Well, no, that was a crazy glitch.
Yeah. But this was a great game because of the power-ups involved in this. You actually had to have strategy.
Yeah, and it improved on the original Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo immensely. Obviously, the 3D graphics, but I think the controls were a little more solid. The power-ups were more interesting. The courses, obviously, were now like 3-dimensional and layered on top of each other, and it wasn't just a flat surface. 4-player simultaneously. The battle mode is 4-player, and that's absolutely incredible with some of the like quad-decker levels that almost feel like mazes. This one also, they got rid of the coins for speed. I think in the Super Mario Kart, you drove over coins on the road, and the more coins you had, the faster your car would go.
Yeah, I remember playing that one.
Yeah, which that was sort of hard, especially if you fell off the edge or something, and Lakitu had to pull you out. He would deduct a fee.
Yeah.
This also, I think, added the blue shell, if I'm not mistaken. So Super Mario Kart didn't have the blue shell that would basically just home in on the person in first place.
Oh yeah, the first place shell.
So if you're in first place, yeah, you really have to watch your back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was one of these games you could be like, a half a lap ahead of somebody, and then they'd get that shell, and they'd end up winning.
Nail ya.
Yeah, you would save it for the end.
Yep. I don't know about you guys though, but I think this was definitely my favorite racing game I've ever played.
This was one of those big party.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
great.
This is an awesome party game.
Yeah.
Though as far as the best in the series, I think I'd have to give that award to Double Dash on the GameCube.
That's true.
But this one is not far behind it.
I just loved how you could even, like it's showing right now, you'd have the balloons, you could hit people, you could, there's a few different things you could do, all the different cups, the different difficulties.
Yeah, it added a lot more, I think, than the Super Mario.
Yeah. And I mean, and you're racing and you can shoot stuff at people. What more could you want?
Yeah, this created the racing kart genre.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, up until then it was either Demolition Derby or you're trying for, not arcade / realistic driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a Top Gear or something.
Fun. This made it fun. In a party type atmosphere, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you could play this game with a couple of friends for hours at a time and not even know it. And the controls too. The controls were very, very fluid.
Yeah, I think they were
better
than Super Mario Kart. Though those were a little slippery for my tastes.
Yeah.
Into the lava.
All right. Well, let's see. Next, we're shifting to a completely different genre. Where is it? There we go. 007 Goldeneye.
Oh yeah.
One of the best known games, particularly
Ever.
first-person shooters.
Uh-huh.
I still hold up games to this day to this standard, which is really weird for some reason. But just the controls, the gameplay was just, it was incredible.
Isn't this like one of the games that was like that made first-person shooters on a console a legitimate option?
Definitely.
Yes, it did.
Where before it was like, you can't do a first-person game on a console. I mean,
yeah,
that's the mouse and WASD thing, you know.
People laughed at the thought.
Yeah.
And then
particularly one with multiplayer.
Oh yeah, this had 4 players. Which would be sort of weird because then you could see everyone's screen.
Yeah, there was a lot of what's the word someone used to use for that to describe looking at the other person's screen. But there was a lot of peeking, shall we say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember sometimes you'd be hiding Like, I don't know, sometimes you would hide just so you could pick people off from those hidden spots. You'd have to like turn in a corner so somebody wouldn't know where you were. So you'd be like just
yeah.
staring directly at the wall.
So all they saw was these weird textures all around you.
Yep,
Yeah. And it wasn't like you could do with Xbox, where you could put a couple of Xboxes and play off the network, because there was no network play. It was all split screen.
Yeah. And the weaponry in this game is just, they have it all. Such a good variety.
This thing had like a ton of guns.
Yeah. Oh, and every gun, they just worked so well. It seemed everyone was good for something else. Like, they did an awesome job. And the mines, the proximity mines, the time mines, you can do everything.
The only problem I've had with this game, going back to it, is the controls were hard. I don't know if I'm not used to them or something, but you can pretty much control most of the game with just the analog stick.
Yeah.
But it seemed a little clumsy trying to move and strafe, and it's a little hard to get used to when you've been conditioned on dual sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a retroness necessary to relearn the controllers. You know, as I said, when I picked up the controller to play N64, I was like, I was holding it wrong. Because I had completely forgotten how it worked, because it was so different.
Yeah, because the N64 only had the one analog stick, so you...
Yeah, and it's funny, because when I was playing another game that we'll look at here later on the Xbox, I had the same problem, except with the Xbox controller. So I was trying to do the Nintendo on the Xbox controller.
Yeah, but they've actually re-released this game on the Wii with like completely revamped graphics and levels, and given it the motion control and pointing support.
Huh. Have you heard anything about that?
I actually tried it.
Okay.
I rented it, and you can fine-tune those. Well, they give you the option to do the classic like dual stick type mode on like a classic controller or GameCube controller, but they also let you use the pointer and nunchuck, which is cool, and you can fine-tune it down to a hair, and even give yourself like auto aim. So if you just can't just point that exactly where you want it, you can do it so that you just have to point in the general direction of the enemy, and it will automatically make sure the bullets go where you're intending them to go.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've seen in other reviews is the weakness of the Wii with first-person shooters.
Yeah, I love the pointing, but it sometimes is just not quite.
Yeah, it's not accurate.
Yeah.
Depends on how well the game has been made, I think. Some games seem to work better than others.
I feel like just pointing the controller at the screen, you'd have a tendency to just move even a little bit.
That's why they have that auto aim support and the fine-tuning adjustments to the sensitivity and whatever.
Cool. Okay.
But actually, they are going to be re-releasing this game on the Xbox 360 and PS3 with HD graphics.
Awesome.
That seems to be the trend lately, is to re-release some of these old games.
Yeah, which I love it when they do that if they do a good job.
Yeah, if they do a good job. I don't want them to ruin my childhood memories.
Which the problem I had with the Wii port of this is they got rid of Pierce Brosnan and swapped him out with that other character that's playing James Bond now.
Oh, the current guy.
Yeah.
Daniel Craig?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They got him in there instead of Pierce Brosnan, which Brosnan is much better.
Yeah, definitely.
And I found some of the levels to be incredibly dark. It's like the contrast or something was way off, so I couldn't see anything.
Really? Huh.
I would have to like really play with the brightness and stuff on my TV so I could actually see what I'm shooting at.
I don't like when they do that. That makes it tough.
Yeah. So
I played some other games like that.
I'm hoping the HD versions on the PS3 and 360 would be better.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we got?
Oh, I was gonna ask, does the Wii version have like network play, or do you have to be on the same system to do multiplayer?
I'll have to check. I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it had network play. Their Nintendo Wi-Fi connection.
Okay.
But I think they also did it. I think they also had split screen. I think they're sort of going for the whole retro. This is the.
Mm-hmm.
This is the classic first-person shooter multiplayer game, so I think they went with split screen as well.
I don't know about you guys, but it was just awesome to get together Friday night or Saturday night with your buddies and all in one room, and get to play a game.
Oh yeah.
Now we all play online together.
Well, let's see. Next game, we are shifting gears in the total opposite direction.
Yeah, from very realistic to
to Yoshi's Story.
Yay! You gotta love Yoshi.
Oh yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Yoshi? Yoshi's Island is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. Which this is actually very similar to Yoshi's Island, except you don't have Mario on your back causing you grief. So have either of you played Yoshi's Story, or am I the only one who's played it slightly?
I think you the only guy who's played it.
I have not, It looks great. It looks like a lot of fun, though, already.
Yeah, it's pretty much just a straight platformer, a lot like Yoshi's Island.
Okay.
Except
What's
you
the
don't have...
sun doing in the middle there, that sunflower or whatever that is?
That is your health.
Oh, okay.
Little health meter. On the Yoshi's Island, Mario was sort of your health meter.
Uh-huh.
You had the little countdown timer that when you lost him, and it would start counting down, and if you didn't catch him, then, you would lose a life.
Okay.
You have the sun on here instead.
Kind of reminds me of that Kirby one for the Wii with the yarn.
Yeah. Actually, I think the story is kind of...
Well, I mean, gameplay-wise, there's a certain artistic style here, obviously, but, not quite the same. But the gameplay seems to be very similar, sort of semi-isometric levels.
The whole 2D platforming in kind of a 3D-ish environment. Yeah, very similar.
The graphics look great. It almost looks like a scrapbook or something.
Well, that's actually the whole point of the game, is that their island has been turned into a storybook.
Oh, cool. Okay. Neat.
Yes, Baby Bowser casts a spell on the Super Happy Tree. And transforms the entire island into a storybook.
The Super Happy Friends tree?
Yes, and he even steals the Super Happy Tree.
Games used to be so upbeat and wonderful. Now it's all about like killing zombies and the end of the world.
Well, yeah, true. Now
Super
you're gonna have
Happy Tree? How much more happy could you get?
I think the biggest problem is nobody accepts these little blurbs anymore for the premise of a story. They want a big, huge continuation and a novella and
some
and
real
like
plot.
a movie inside. Yeah.
Which I actually appreciate a game having a lot of plot and story.
Yeah, definitely.
Same here, but it's not always necessary for it. It sometimes gets in the way of gameplay.
Yeah.
That's more of a problem with the game makers than the.
Yeah, and some of the story, not very often, but sometimes the story is just so horrible. You're like, can we just get rid of it?
Yeah. I just want to play the game. Quit telling me why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, unskippable cutscenes.
Oh. Those are horrible.
Are you underwater now?
I think so. It sure looks like it. I mean,
Yeah,
they
there's a
got
crab
fish.
there, and
Yeah.
it looks
Okay.
like
That must be underwater.
looks like the one from The Little Mermaid, but Sebastian or whatever his name was.
Yeah, under the sea.
Yeah,
Sorry.
which the Super Nintendo one actually didn't have underwater levels. I don't.
Oops. secret
Well,
part.
actually, it did. You had in the Super Nintendo one, you had to transform into a submarine in order to go underwater.
But there's shades of the old 3D, pseudo 3D game Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah,
Even the music kind of reminds me of it.
It looks fun, all the bright colors and everything. This would have been great to play back in the day.
yeah. I'm sure it has to be on the Virtual Console.
I'll have to
This
check
was
it out.
this was a game made for very specific age bracket. So
Yeah.
not that anybody couldn't play it, is obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
you
but I
have Little
think it
Big
was-
Planet now, and that's
Yeah, exactly. It was made with a certain aesthetic.
Yeah.
so if you can either appreciate or look past the aesthetic, and you had a pretty good game.
Right.
Was the gameplay good? The controls responsive and everything?
Yeah, the only problem
Now that's Little Big Planet.
Yeah.
the only problem I had with the controls were in some of the areas where the path would branch into an upper and lower area on the 2D, scale. It was sort of tough to get to go down or up. Otherwise, when you're just platforming on the basic 2D plane, then it works fine. Well, I guess before we move too much further, we should probably take a moment to thank our sponsor, which, as was last week's, this ad is provided to us by Matt Lucas, who is promoting I As Akhtar's show, This Old Nerd, which is a video podcast that pretty much tells you how to have the most tech-forward house and life possible. But you have to be willing to get your hands a little dirty, because this is all DIY stuff. But he pretty much details what you can do to hack your house, so to speak, and your life, for like getting rid of your cable and TV and setting up a home network, and even had an episode on how to hack your Wii so you can play all kinds of nifty homebrew stuff.
Really, it's a great show. I mean, and
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff he does can be done for a very reasonable price at your home.
Yeah, he's even got a little, I think he still has it, a little store in conjunction with Amazon, the little Amazon associate store, so you can pick up some of the supplies he mentions. He even goes into the partner acceptance rating on, whether you're living with someone, married, or, as would be me, living with my parents, and how to present or convince them of this certain hack or project you want to do to make your life a little more tech forward. It basically gives you some arguments and reasons on how you should present your case. But you can find all those episodes and the little store thing at thisoldnerd.com. And if you would like to have your own ad on the show, you can do that for only $5. I have a gig on Fiverr that you can find at j75.me/5ad. So then oh nice, the Nutcracker.
This level was really tough, from the looks of it.
Yeah, that's That's the thing. That's sort of odd on some of these games like this. Even like Little Big Planet, they look so little kiddish and whatever, but when you start playing them, they're genuinely hard.
Yeah, there's all these saws flying at you and everything. Wow.
Yeah. Well, should we move on to
Sure.
possibly the definitive classic game on the N64? Possibly only barred by Super Mario 64.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's probably the only game that could come close to unseating this game as the N64 classic. And of course, we are talking about Ocarina of Time. And I think me and Dustin are the only ones who have played this, if I'm not mistaken. I think that this goes on your list along with Mario Kart 64 of games that you haven't played, Graeme.
Yeah, it's on my list of shame.
That's okay. Everyone has one.
Yes, my list of shame is quite long.
Yeah, this. I was never really a big fan of Japanese RPG games.
Well, this isn't really a Japanese RPG.
I know that, but that's not how it's really sold kind of back then. And, you know, considering the Super Nintendo, because this is, you know, this is an extension of the Super Nintendo version, right? And the Nintendo.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, all the Zelda games are set in different universes and whatever craziness. There is no timeline, whatever. But yeah, if you had to call this a sequel, it would be a sequel to the Super Nintendo one.
Well, that's the way I took it from based on what little I knew about it at the time. But
yeah, I think how Super Mario 64 defined the 3D platforming genre, I think that pretty much defined the 3D adventure game genre.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the first 3D Zelda game. It was the first, they invented the whole Z targeting, or the whole 3D targeting system for games, which pretty much everyone uses now, and is like invaluable in combat. Just locking on with one enemy while the others kind of dance around you makes things a whole lot easier when you're dealing with 3 dimensions. It also has an incredible story, which when you first start playing it, you pretty much get lambasted with the story. You have to go like through 5 minutes of cutscenes before you can actually start playing it.
Which may have been the reason why I never really got into it at first. You know, I was not into this cutscene.
It's a little slow to get into, unlike Mario 64, where you just pop out of a pipe and boom, the world is yours. This was a little slow to get going.
Yeah. But once it got going.
It got going.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I love the this really introduced the whole musical instrument aspect of Zelda games, which they had dabbled in a little bit previously, but having that ocarina that you actually played, and different songs had different effects, and some of them were merely basically like warp spells. Others unlocked certain things. Some of them would freeze enemies, others would change time, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think that this was the first Zelda game that felt truly epic. A lot like Mario 64. This was the first Zelda game where it felt really epic.
Yeah.
Especially once you get out of the forest. When you're in the forest, you know, things are a little more claustrophobic, but then once you get out and into Hyrule proper, it's like, oh yeah, I see rolling green hills in the distance. I wonder where those go. And oh, there's a huge castle town over there. Or what's in there? And it's just amazing how big the world is. Though it's been surpassed by all subsequent Zelda games, but it still feels pretty epic.
Considering it's on a cartridge.
Yes.
This was in the days of the 640 megs CDs.
Yeah.
Some games incorporating multiple CDs, like some of the Final Fantasy series. And
Oh yeah.
Cross,
Oh man, yeah.
This was all on one cartridge.
Yeah, all the whole entire world, and there's all kinds of secrets and little hidden areas in the world, and then you had all the dungeons, which there were some pretty devious dungeons in this game, like the infamous water temple.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to think about that they got all of that on the one game cartridge.
Yeah, and they even brought back in Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. You had the whole Light World, Dark World. They basically kind of do a palette swap, but completely change the world around you. You add some things, new buildings, stuff like that. This, you had the Young Link, Old Link, since it's basically a time travel game, which I'm not a fan of time travel, but I love this game. But you get to play as Young Link and Old Link, and you have like a whole different set of items for each one, and the world actually changes. And I think things you do in the past like affect things in the future and all that crazy stuff. And there's side quests, and this game is packed. It's got fishing, it's got target mini games, a quote unquote bowling mini game. Not quite bowling.
Yeah, that's pushing it.
Yeah, it's called bowling, but it's not really bowling. But otherwise, yeah, this game...
Well, there's different types of bowling than just, your candlestick bowling, your pin bowling. There's, bowling used to be a little tiny white ball, and you tried to get your other ball as close to it as possible.
Oh, yeah, the... Bocce?
Lawn bowling, or lawn bowling. Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, bocce ball. Yeah.
Bocce bowling.
Yeah, bocce is another version of it, yeah. So.
Yeah, this game had it all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great way to waste a day or two even.
Or a week, or more.
Yeah. Oh, it was wonderful.
Though I don't remember any cars being in it.
Yeah, sorry.
Ooh, the masks. Oh yes, the happy mask salesman. Though they're the infamous flying cuckoos.
Oh man. Yeah.
Though I don't think they kill you in this
Oh,
one.
you used to. Some of the things you did were just.
Whoa.
No, I don't think they do either.
Yeah, Link to the Past, the chickens would kill you. This one, I don't think they do. This actually also, since we have covered this on our previous Legend of Zelda anniversary episode, we also mentioned this introduced possibly one of the scariest villains in video game history. All right, have you at least heard of the Redeads, Graeme?
So what was that? Sorry.
The Redeads.
The Redeads.
Yes, possibly it's widely considered to be one of the freakiest, most terrifying video game villains.
I guess not.
See if we can get it here.
I used to think the big demon at the end of Doom was bad enough.
No, this thing freaked me out when I first saw it. Those things are wicked, because they set it up incredible, because you go into a graveyard, you go down into this grave, you go into this weird underground, you're in the weird underground thing, and there's these weird like clay figures standing around, and you approach one of them, they let loose this hideous shriek, and all of a sudden you can't move. And they're sitting there crawling towards you, and if they actually get to you, then they wrap themselves around you and start gnawing on your head and sucking the life out of you.
Very graphic for its time.
Yeah, and considering they're not very detailed, I mean, they look like clay models. And I don't know, those scared the heck out of me when I played this.
Mm-hmm.
They're still creepy. Which is very weird for a Nintendo game. And then of course there's the Great Fairy. That's also we went over that on our Zelda episode 2.
Always got you there.
Here's another rather creep. This and then the Happy Mask Salesman, which doesn't show up quite as much in this, but the Great Fairy they went with a very odd design choice in this game.
It almost sounded like the BOL theme song for a minute at the beginning of it. Oh my goodness,
that is creepy.
Yeah.
The torpedoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why they went with that.
Polygons weren't helping her out.
Especially the low number of polygons.
No. And then the way she shrieks, it's like, what exactly are we going for here? This is not what I expected.
Donna.
Oh. Very interesting design choices in that game.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So next up, another N64 classic. We have Super Smash Brothers. Which this was another interesting game for Nintendo to have a 2D fighting game. Especially considering their previous history on fighting games. Because they had Punch Out, which is that's a classic game. But then they had that weird 2D Urban Champion on the NES, which was absolutely horrible. And then they come out with this, which they actually put off they had the HAL Laboratories, which of Kirby fame, actually I think developed this. So I don't think it was Nintendo themselves. But this is actually one of the few 2D fighting games that I can actually play with some success.
I was always horrible at this game. I don't know why.
Well, I liked it because all the traditional arcade fighters had those infinite number of combos where you had to press like a combination of 13 different buttons in order to pull off a move.
And then you picked a 14th and an entirely different move happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Where this, they completely simplified it, where you had your control stick to move, and then you had your A attack button and your B attack button. Your A attack button was your standard, quote unquote weak attack, and then your B attack button was your stronger special attack that was unique for each character. And the only real way that they mixed it up was that each of those attack buttons could be done. You could get a different move by pressing it while standing still. I think while moving forward. Well, the A attack button you could do while standing still, while jumping, while pressing up, down, and I think moving forward, and you'd get a different attack.
Yeah.
So you pretty much only had a two button combo was the limit.
Yeah.
Up A, down A, and same with the special attacks. You had up B would do one attack, down B would do another attack, forward B would do, or no, just standard B would do another attack.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. I mean, you could do a little blocking and dodging in there too.
Yeah.
But it was pretty simple.
Which is, button mashers are good. I was just never good at it for some reason. I liked how a lot of times you'd get thrown way off like the platforms on the map, and you could try to like almost hop your way or jump your way back to it. It was really weird.
They had the crazy floating platforms and stages.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have a health bar in this, actually. You had your little percentage. I mean, I guess you could set a health bar, but you had a percentage bar, and whenever you got hit, your percentage went up, and the higher your percentage, the more you get knocked back further by attacks.
Yeah.
So you'd go flying off the stage, and you'd have to try and aim your way back and do like a jump or something and save yourself.
Which was kind of a neat way of doing that.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, it's got the whole roster of Nintendo characters in there.
That was the real selling point of this, because I mean, where else are you going to have Donkey Kong and Mario back together? You know,
or have Donkey Kong beating up on Pikachu and Link duking it out with Samus and
it kind of reminded me in how it's done is Digimon Rumble on the Xbox. Very simple. My kids loved it, played it to death. I said they wore out like 3 discs.
Wow.
Okay.
You know, I have 4 controllers on this is the old original Xbox. 4 controllers. Split screen, well, not split screen, just regular screen, and the kids would come down and they would just play.
Yeah,
this
is another one of those great party games.
Yeah, a lot of the games tonight have been that way.
Well, because the Nintendo 64 had the 4 controller ports.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it was great for having, a Friday night with friends or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people would bring over their controllers from their unit, plug it in, away you went.
Yeah, I always remember you'd always have your controller to bring.
BOYC?
YC, yep.
Yep.
Bring your own controller.
Yep. And maybe memory card, too.
Yeah, if the game relies on some save data.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is an awesome game, and has spawned several sequels and is available on the Virtual Console as well.
Can you play on net play? Oh, that'd be great.
Possibly via some fancy schmancy emulation. Otherwise, if you want online play, you're limited to a GameCube modem for the GameCube sequel, or you can do the online on the Wii sequel.
Okay.
Well, let's see. Next up we have, we've covered this one previously. So going back to 3D platformers, we have another
such
rare
a great
game, Banjo-Kazooie. A very, very strange game.
Yeah.
But then
weird.
But then all rare games are strange. Except for something like Goldeneye or...
This was one of those games that just kind of went out from wherever it needed to, like...
Yeah. I love this game. This game was really fun to play.
Yeah, it basically took everything that was successful about Super Mario 64 and one-upped it.
Yeah, threw in some different characters and a few extra things, and
Some new moves, lots of collectibles, as Rare is famous for.
yeah,
Just tons of humor.
yep, definitely.
This game is based off of comedic, slapstick, wink-wink joke type stuff.
Yep. Good old physical humor.
I think this may also have a wider variety in levels. And than Mario 64. I'm not positive on that, but it felt like it did. But it had the whole overworld, or the hub world that you would explore that had all kinds of secrets. And then you would go and you would find each of the level portals to go to a specific level. And this actually, you didn't have specific objectives that you were given off the bat. You were dumped in a world, and you had to go figure out and find.
Yep, what to do? Yeah.
Yeah, the jiggies. Instead of collecting stars, you're collecting these jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
But
yeah, another open world type game.
But yeah, you had to go through the level and you had to find them yourself. You weren't hinted like, giant penguin slide race or big bomb on blast or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, this game was lots of fun.
Yeah.
Just watching this little video here brings back good memories.
Yeah, in this game, just about everything talked, it seems.
Yeah.
Your enemies would sometimes have dialogue. Your collectibles, the stuff you would collect, talked.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like there was a lot of interaction, too. Like, there were so many things in the level you could do. You could interact with the level around you, go in different places, and even, like, climb up the trees.
Yeah, I think you could climb trees in Mario.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the interaction was quite as high in Super Mario as in this. And I think this you could actually, they implemented, I guess you'd call it, some very light RPG elements, just in that you could upgrade your health meter. And you collect like so many of the little honeycomb pieces and stuff like that. You could, kind of like heart pieces on Zelda.
Yeah.
Now this one, unfortunately, you can't get on the Virtual Console since Microsoft bought Rare and Microsoft owns the IP for this, but you can get it on the Xbox 360 on the Live Arcade.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And there's the nuts and bolts version.
Yeah, and then there's the newer sequel they made.
Is that for PlayStation or?
No, that's
for everything.
Xbox.
Oh,
Yeah.
The Xbox.
Microsoft owns Rare, so they own the Banjo-Kazooie
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Nintendo owns Donkey Kong, so we don't have stuff like Donkey Kong 64 on the Xbox, which would be totally awesome.
Oh,
This has the Rare voices.
yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh, ow, oh, ow, oh, oh.
I just love how it's the gibberish they use.
It actually, it doesn't sound too cheap or anything. It actually sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to deal with terrible voice acting,
Yeah.
which can be absolutely horrible in some video games,
Yeah, it can be pretty jarring sometimes.
especially when they do them over the phone.
Another thing too is it's a little less annoying when the character has to produce the same sound effect over and over again. Because I had Gex 64. Remember the Gex 64? And he's got like 3 or 4 catchphrases. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
all he repeats over and over.
But then you can always guess which one he's gonna say.
Well, after a while, it doesn't matter. It's just sick of all of them. You just wish there was a shut up button.
Yeah.
And something like this is just noise. It's not enough to kind of trigger the recognition that you need.
Yeah, it's almost just like a sound effect of the game. You don't even really consider it their voice almost.
Well, somebody of my age would call it the Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah, the Charlie Brown adult voice. I actually saw a comic of that. There was like that was showing the Charlie Brown and a couple of his friends sitting in class, and then up front was the silhouette of a teacher holding a trumpet. It was like the Charlie Brown adult. Alright, well, should we move on to actually... This sounds so weird. An N64 game released in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that does seem weird.
Yeah, Kirby 64.
It was one of the later ones.
Yeah, definitely. It just seems weird to say an N64 game in 2000.
Yeah. What year did the original PlayStation come out? That was before that, right?
The N64 itself was in 96.
Yeah, the PlayStation was like 98 or...
Okay.
Yeah.
PlayStation was a contemporary, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this was, towards the end of the 64's life cycle here.
Yeah, this was just before the Xbox came out.
Okay.
And the Xbox was the next gen. You know, Saturn was out at this point.
Yeah, how many people use those?
The Dreamcast had come.
And gone.
The Sega Saturn, the laser disc of the video game world.
I always thought the 3DO was that, but you know, the CDI, remember CDs Interactive?
Oh man.
You know, I almost bought one of those.
Good thing you did.
Yeah, I think I would probably consider this one of my favorite Kirby games.
Yeah, this is handled very well. Gameplay was smooth.
Yeah, and it was that same where it's all 2D, but it's sort of rendered in a 3D landscape. So even if you're going in more of a three-dimensional direction, you still only have left and right.
Yeah,
but
just looking at the screen right now, it almost looks like it's 3D.
Yeah, though my favorite part of this was the power combining, because of course Kirby, you can inhale his enemies and copy their powers. But this, I think, was the first one where you could throw two powers together and get a totally new power. Like you combine, like, what do we got? We got needles and fire, and that gives
fire needles.
Fire needles, yeah.
That gives you a flaming bow and arrow.
Oh.
And there was another one like electricity and needles, or there was one that like gives you a lightsaber. Another one gives you a Darth Maul lightsaber. Are you still there? Yes. And there was one that's really funny. If you combine a snow power with an electricity power, you turn into a fridge. Which the only good thing that does is you can spew food, which will restore your health.
That's funny.
Yeah, this was a awesome game. I actually own
was this the first Kirby game on its own, or?
What do you mean by that?
Was this the first Kirby game, or did they actually have one on the SNES?
Oh no, Kirby goes all the way back to the NES.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was not a character I really played any games with, so.
No, he was more directed toward the younger kids.
Yeah, he was kind of Nintendo's Echo the Dolphin.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
yes,
boy,
I'm still there.
If you weren't playing like Yoshi or something, you were probably playing Kirby.
Yeah.
It was a fun game. Definitely.
Oh yeah, if you combine two of the same powers, you get like a super mega version of that power. You go from Fireball to Phoenix. Well, we should probably move on to our last game before we run too long and I can't upload this to Blip TV. What do we got? For our last game,
Perfect Dark.
we have Perfect Dark.
Excellent.
Which I actually have not played this. I've played Perfect Dark Zero on the 360, but I have not played this original one.
It's pretty similar.
Is it? Okay.
The 360 version is, you know, an updated version of it, like, texture-wise and stuff. But it plays exactly the same.
Are you talking the 360 port, or because I have the sequel to this, which was
I think I'm thinking the port because I bought the port.
Yeah, they did port
Live
this
game, right?
Yeah, they ported it to Live Arcade.
Yeah.
But there was before that it was a 360 launch title. They had Perfect Dark Zero.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually a prequel to this technically.
Yeah.
Story-wise.
Now, I mean, very similar to 007.
Yeah, another first-person shooter.
Well, not surprising, consider Rare did both of them, right?
Yeah. See, almost all our games on here on Nintendo are Rare.
Well, Rare really came alive with this.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
this console generation.
Yeah.
Just hit after hit or game after game.
Yeah, they had.
However you want to look at it.
And this had a good story. You think it's a spy story, and then it changes into a sci-fi story.
Oh yeah, because she's like a secret agent type person.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And you could go into your training and learn your weapons. Again, one of those ones with like, skippable cutscenes, but again, you should watch the cutscenes because it's the story, right? And there is a story to this game, and it can do split screen.
Oh yeah, the four-player deathmatch stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Does also have more destructible environments. I don't remember Goldeneye having much for destructible environments.
No, it didn't.
It had
very
some.
few. Yeah.
It had some. You could shoot through walls, certain doors. You could shoot through the glass walls. The real problem was figuring out if glass was there or not, because the glass was a little iffy.
It was sort of hard to tell whether it was glass or fog.
Now, I'm not playing real in-depth into 007, but one of the features this game had was a no blood mode.
Oh,
If
interesting.
you wanted to tone the violence down, you actually had a sleep gun where it would shoot darts.
Huh.
Cool. That's neat.
And you know, it was sort of a stealth weapon, right? So you could sneak around and sleep everybody rather than kill them.
Nice. Yeah,
Well,
I don't
I remember the Nintendo at the time had a pretty good reputation, or what they were trying to do was to make games less violent, more family-orientated, etc., right?
Which, yeah, and Goldeneye, I don't think there was any blood in that game.
No, except for like on your screen when you died, it would just like turn red.
Oh yeah, it'd have a little blood drip down, it would turn red.
But on the people, no, never.
Yeah, because this game is actually rated M, but I think 007 was T.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, of course, they have to go to the worst case scenario, which is what you just saw, dead bodies.
Get your mother to buy this for you when you were young. But Mom, you don't kill people.
I bought this game. Now, the reason, one of the things that the N64 also supported, and this is the first game that I really bought for it, was the memory expansion.
Oh yeah, to get the advanced graphics.
Oh, okay.
Which some games actually required that.
Yeah. This game actually was incredibly different with that pack in it. The textures and graphics were better. The four player multiplayer was better because you could almost put double the resolution.
Oh wow.
Now I was fortunate; it was kind of late in life of the console that I picked up one of those things at a pawn shop for $20
Yeah.
because they were quite expensive.
Well, yeah. Though I think they did bundle it with like Donkey Kong 64, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
When that came out, because that required it. Ooh. That was violent.
Yes, it was.
I was in before teabagging, but
Oh man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Perfect Dark also had unique and visible reload sequences, unlike Goldeneye. So you could actually see your character reloading each different weapon.
yeah, the guns were great too in this, and you could dual wield at one point. There were some puzzles levels, simple puzzles, but there were puzzle levels.
Yeah, I think Metroid was the only first-person game to have real puzzles.
Yeah, it's a good exploring game. It's one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games.
Yeah, and if you happen to have a 360, you can even get the XBLA port.
Yeah, I got that some sale. You know, it was a couple hundred Microsoft points, which is really nothing.
Yeah.
Few bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this would be another rare game that you cannot get on the Virtual Console due to Microsoft owning Rare.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now,
Microsoft.
Well, Nintendo's
that
the
said,
same
don't
way.
expect high def.
No, if you want a high-def version, you'll have to get the Perfect Dark Zero sequel.
Yeah. The Xbox XBL, the remake is very, very much like the original.
One more chance. Give it back. And you could come and work for
Though you don't have to worry about the frame rates. I did find some frame rate issues with the Nintendo in this game. And things got a little busy.
Yeah. That and I think the N64 had like horrible draw distance, so it was hard on some games. That's why some games had a odd fog. So instead of just seeing a landscape of nothingness, you would just be surrounded in fog. But yeah, the N64 was definitely a really good system despite its controller and lack of third-party support.
Mm-hmm. It was one of the first consoles with, composite out rather than RF modulator.
Oh,
Remember, you had to buy the RF modulator separate for this console.
yeah,
So,
because
you
all
know,
the other ones they hooked up via one of those coax jack things.
Yeah, RF basically.
Yeah.
They would put out channel 2 and 3, and of course that dirtied the graphics, right? Because it was all converted down to analog,
Yeah.
and the RF circuitry had a tendency to kind of mangle it.
Huh.
I mentioned that because it's one of the things that the game had was a plug on the back to actually allow different. You know, if you went to Europe, you got a SCART cartridge or cable that plugged into the back, and composite cable plugged in the back. There was some differences to it, which pretty much all the new consoles all support, right?
Yeah.
And what was else that was kind of important about that console? Oh, an unsupported device that somebody actually built was remember zip drives?
Okay.
The iOmega zip drives. There was actually a drive mechanism that plugged into the bottom and allowed you to back up your cartridges onto zip disks.
I think I remember that. There was that weird panel on the bottom of the N64 that didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's the expansion port, right?
Yeah.
And it's a, I think it's called a duplex drive or DD64 or something like that. Double drive. Can't quite remember, but it used zip disks.
There was that disc add-on.
Yeah. I mean, it was completely... This was one of the first consoles that really got pirated. Because of that, right?
Yeah. Sounds like that's kind of what it was used for.
Yeah, and it's one of the I mean, even with their lockout chip, because all you had to do was have a cartridge in the machine, right? And then any cartridge would do, and then you would run the game off the zip disk.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, nice.
Early DRM.
Well, Nintendo was famous for having their lockout chips, right? In the original Nintendo, even. Right? So that nobody else could produce games but them by putting this lockout chip in. And
trying to prevent another video game crash.
Yeah, and well, one of the things that really prevented was a lot of games for the N64. Yeah, they're all classics, but not a whole lot of them.
Yeah. PS1 library is definitely a lot bigger.
Yeah, they were easy to produce discs, right? Hardware's a little bit more expensive, but this reminds me so much of Duke Nukem.
Well, I think that will do it for this week.
I used to love going around dual wielding.
Oh, nice. If you want to find some more retro reviews and more episodes and our new random retro bonus round miniseries, you can find that on my blog at retrogamesforever.com. Follow me on Twitter at JoshuaCaleb75, on Google Plus, j75.me/G+. What do you guys got? You guys got some Twitter handles.
Go ahead, Justin. Dustin, I mean. Oh, well, mine is Smoke Me a Kipper, at Smoke Me a Kipper. Just think Red Dwarf and you'll know it.
How about you, Dustin?
Yeah, mine is SchmidtDA for Twitter. Schmidt is SCHMIDT. Yeah, that's about it. Get some more fiber ads, everyone.
Yeah, I need to
Keep
to
us
pay
doing
for
the retro here.
I need to pay for all these games I'm buying. I sort of went on a spending spree.
And surprisingly, people, some of these games are not cheap.
No, they're not. They're
No.
definitely not cheap.
For you would think old games would be cheap, but oftentimes they are not.
No, some games are really in demand. People want them.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time still goes for $40.
Yep.
I think Smash Brothers still goes for $40.
Yep. I've seen it for 20 here locally, but prices vary, right, depending on market conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And but some of these games are quite expensive. I mean, you can't give away a Nintendo console. And for that matter, you know, a Mario 64 is probably worth $5 or $6, but because everybody had one. But certain other games like Perfect Dark and the memory expansion, you know.
Oh yeah, those are hard to find.
Those are getting harder to find. And it's surprising how many places actually still feature and sell these old retro games. So if you're really interested in playing some of these, you can pick up a console and a game and hook it up and impress the kids like it's a dial telephone.
Back in my day.
Yeah, we didn't have to push numbers. We moved them around. I had an old Commodore phone.
Spinning? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I had an old Commodore phone that was dial, and I used to have it here on my desk, and the kids would come in and push the buttons. you know, push the letters trying to get it to work. It was funny.
Oh, yes.
That's all they need to do these days to make something child-proof. Just put an old-fashioned phone in. They won't know what to do.